Hey guys, welcome to a new series. If you do not know who I am, my name is Mr. Wiz and I build video games. So I am a public school teacher and I teach coding through building games. It's a really great way to learn how to code. So this is a brand new series on Unity. I do have some other series you can check out on my YouTube channel. There are playlists there from some other platforms that we build games on. But this is a brand new series on building in Unity. This is very much a beginner level series. I teach middle schoolers, and this is something that I teach to my 8th graders. So 8th grade and up is really what I would recommend for Unity. 8th grade is a pretty young age to start with Unity, but my kids are very capable, and I know they can do it, and that's why I push them and challenge them in these ways. But this is definitely something you can do in high school, college, or even beyond that. So what is Unity? Why Unity? Let me tell you a little bit about why I love it. So Unity is a free software. That's always a plus, right? So it is free software that you can download and use, and you can use it in so many different ways. It is designed to be a game engine, so something you would use to build games, but it can be used for a lot more than games. So a lot of industries use Unity. There are animation industries that use Unity, film industries, engineering, architecture, automotive. There's a lot of potential once you get into this kind of software on what you can do with it. And the Unity software is really flexible too. So even if you do just focus on gaming, the variety of types of games you can build, it's ridiculous. Almost any game you can imagine, you could design something like that in Unity. Whether it's a 2D game or a 3D game, it could be high graphics, could be low graphics, could be more cartoon animation type graphics. All of that can be built within the Unity software. So that's why I love it, because it gives you so much creative freedom. So for this course, we are going to be covering, as I mentioned, basic beginner level stuff, but we're still going to be having a lot of fun along the way. The goal is to learn while we create, learn while we are building games. So we're going to be having fun and we're going to be learning as we go. So before we get started on all of that, let me just talk about setting up, getting ready, getting started. So first things first, you would need to download the software. So I am on the website right now, unity.com. That's what's playing behind me here. And when you go to unity.com, there's a nice download button right there for you. And when you click on it, it talks about how to get started. So of course, you do need to download the Unity Hub. So Unity Hub is the software that you will be building your games and programs on. You build offline. So everything you build is saved to your computer. So you're building offline. But of course, you can download things from the internet. You can also upload games to the internet, which is pretty fun. So you have options there. But of course, the first step would be to download it for either Windows, Mac, or Linux. I'm not going to walk you through that process because you can go through it yourself once you download it. Just follow the setup instructions and all that. Choosing a Unity version. So this part is pretty important. So let's talk about that. So there are a lot of different versions of Unity out there. It's been going on for several years now. There's a lot of releases and they're constantly updating it with new and better things. So which version do you want to download? Should you always download the newest, most up-to-date version? My answer is no. So if you look at these different years and these different things going on, I always recommend going with the most recent LTS version. So if you'll notice, like 2023 does not have an LTS, but 2022 does. So LTS stands for long-term support. Basically what that means is that version of Unity is done. It's finished. It's complete. But it does have long-term support in the sense that they may occasionally put out a bug fix update, right? They're not adding any more features to it, but they may end up fixing some bugs every once in a while, okay? So long-term support is usually the way to go. Why don't you want to go with something newer? So the newer stuff is still having big updates done to it. So there's a lot of experimenting. They're putting mods on there that they might not even decide whether or not they want to keep. There may be a lot of bugs in there that haven't been found yet, and that can make coding, especially for a beginner, very, very challenging, right? So even though the 2023 version has stuff on it that I would love to play with, we're not going to use it because it's not finished yet. So we're going to use the LTS version for what we're doing here. And if you look at the numbers, of course, there's a lot of different ones here. I would go with the most up to date. So that would be, in this case, the 22.3.41. So the numbers here, of course, represent the year of the version. The 3 represents the big update, right? So there would have been probably 3 big updates to this version. And then the 41 is referring to the smaller updates, those bug fixes I was talking about, right? So that's how you should decide which one to do. Stick with the LTS. Could you go older than this? Yeah, you could. The 2021 is the one I'm actually most familiar with, if I'm being honest with you. That's the one I used that one for a few years. So 2022 one, I'm new to. There may be some differences there that I'm going to have to learn for the sake of this video, because I've been using the 2020 or the 2019 the most. But for the most part, it's still the same program. There just may be some little things different that I'm going to have to learn about, some of the layouts differences and things of that nature. So could you use the older ones? Absolutely, you could. But why would you want to? Like, if you're new to Unity, go with the newest thing. Because if you're going to start learning with an older software, then you just have to teach yourself. Eventually, you're going to want to upgrade, right? And you got to teach yourself all the differences. You're just giving yourself more work. So if you're new to Unity, I would recommend using whatever the newest LTS version is. By the time you're watching this video, it might not be 2022. It might be 2023 or something after that. But I would definitely stick with whatever the most recent LTS version is when you're first getting started. And then eventually, you might want to upgrade after a couple of years when new stuff comes along that looks fun and interesting. Right now, the thing I'm really curious about is AI. I know the 2023 version, they're working on AI updates. So once the 2023 version is done, I might switch over just to learn how to use those features. All right, let's talk about plans and pricing. There's a little bubble right there we can click on. That'll tell us a little bit about this. So as I believe I already mentioned, Unity is free software, and so is the account. So there are pay versions of Unity, but the pay versions are really along the side of business. So if your goal is to make something, sell it, advertise it, make money off of it and revenue, and have things that you can sell online and all that jazz, then you definitely are going to want to go the business route, the pro route, as you're seeing here. But if you're just doing this as a hobbyist, for now, I would recommend, of course, just setting up a personal account. There are student accounts as well, as you can see here, and there are also accounts for teachers. There are educational accounts. So if you switch over here, you can get education licenses and things of that nature. I have gone that route before. I think right now I just have a simple personal account. I don't think I renewed my educator account, but I didn't need to for what I'm doing. So yeah, so there's different options for that, but you'll see most of them are free. The only time you would want to pay is if you are in an industry where you're actually planning on selling things and getting those services that go along with that. Otherwise, go for a free account. Okay, so yes, the software is free, the accounts are free. So at this point in time, you should probably go ahead and download Unity Hub, set up your account, and download your version, and I will meet you over there. Okay, so by now you've got the Unity Hub downloaded, you've got your account set up, you're signed in, you're looking at the Unity Hub. This is basically, let's talk about what the Unity Hub has and how it works. So here, of course, you can see that I'm using 3.8.0. I'm on the project section right now where I can create a new project or add an existing one. So that's kind of cool. So if you have a project, an old project that's saved, or if someone shared a project with you, you can add a existing project, or you have the option to create a new one. In the install section, this is where you would have your different versions of Unity that you can also install directly from here with the install editor, and you can pick the version that you want to download. So here you can see that I have actually a few versions on here that I'm using. So I've got the 2020 versions, which I used to use, and currently I recently downloaded this 22 version that I will be using for these videos. So you have the projects tab, you have the installs tab, you have the learn tab. So the learn tab directs you to basically Unity's teaching tools. They have a website called Unity Learn where you can find a lot of great resources to teach you some great stuff. So obviously this YouTube series is not the only series out there. There are other things on YouTube and of course online. Unity Learn is a great resource. I will say the one negative I have about Unity Learn is that the website tends to be really slow and it tends to be really buggy. So frequently when I need it the most is when it doesn't want to work for me. So yeah, take that for what it's worth, but there is a lot of great stuff out there. If you click on the community tab, it has access to some other things you can check out as well. The Unity Asset Store is awesome. This is where you can go to download things like 3D models and characters and background images and textures and sound effects. So much stuff in the Asset Store. Some of it costs money, some of it does not. So a lot to play around with there. There's blogs you can go to and check things out, forums, and all sorts of stuff here in the community. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our first project. So in the projects, I'm going to go ahead and click New Project. So first thing I want you to notice is up here at the top where it says Editor Version. Because I have more than one version of Unity, I can choose now which one I want to use, right? So do I want my new project to be built in the 22 version or in one of the old 2020 versions? I can change that when I'm creating a project, which is kind of convenient. I like the fact that they let you do that. So if for some reason you decided one day to switch to a different one, you could do that quickly and easily when you're creating your project. So here we have our templates. There's quite a lot of them here. You can also kind of narrow it down by just looking at the core templates, just looking at sample templates, or just looking at learning. So if I'm looking at core, we've got several different things here. We've got 2D and 3D. So we've got the built-in render pipeline for both of those. Then we have universal 2D, universal 3D. We have high definition 3D. So all of these are pretty similar. The biggest difference you're going to find between them is the graphics. So depending on what you're doing, you may want to switch between them. But I usually just go with the default ones up here with the built-in render pipeline. Then down here you have if you're building mobile games. So if you're building something specifically designed to be a mobile game, you should really start with one of these, either the 3D mobile, if it's going to be a 3D mobile game, or a 2D mobile game. That's going to help you get started, and it's going to basically be laid out correctly for a mobile device. You've got VR. If you're building a VR game, this would be the one you'd want to start with. Mixed reality is things like augmented reality, where maybe you're doing a VR overlay. So you have the real world mixed in with the digital world. So you have some options there. Same thing with augmented reality. So yeah, AR, you've got a lot of options. Small scale competitive multiplayer. I'll be honest with you, this is a brand new one. I have not seen this or used this. This was not in the 2020 version that I'm familiar with. Let's see what it says here. Quick start your multiplayer game with the netcode for Game Objects package and Unity Gaming Services. Recommended as a starting point to build small-scale competitive games that don't require prediction. Huh. That's curious. I might want to play around with that sometime just to see what I can learn about it. So yeah, a lot of options here. In the sample section, these really just kind of help you get started because they've already got some stuff built out. So Cinematic Studio is great if you are building something like a TV show or a short film and you really want to focus on the animation side of it. This is a great tool to just get you started. And then these other ones are ones like we just saw. And there's the high definition 3D sample and a universal 3D sample. So these already have stuff in them that you can check out. But of course, the cool thing about this is even if you're starting with one of these sample projects, you can edit it once you get started with it, right? So you can go in there, you can look at how theirs works, and you can kind of build using the tools that they already have laid out for you, which is pretty helpful. I actually really like starting with sample programs. VR multiplayer. Ooh, this is a new one. There's some fun stuff here. I'm definitely going to have to play around with some of these on my free time. So as a complete newbie, I always recommend the very first thing you do is one of the learning ones. Now, we've got the FPS micro game is the one that my students seem to enjoy the most. So that's what I'm going to focus on. But there are other learning templates. There's the 2D platformer, which allows you to build a game kind of similar to the old school Mario games, where you're jumping around. It's a 2D game. There are enemies that you jump on, and there's coins you can collect and things of that nature. If you go back to some of the older versions, some of these older versions have different learning ones, which is kind of fun. So if you go back to 2020 and we look at them, there's actually 4 of them here. So they have the FPS and the 2D platformer, but they also have a Lego micro game and a karting game. So some fun alternatives there. And I've seen other versions that had things that weren't on these too. So I guess that is one benefit of possibly using an older version, is that there are some programs that aren't in the newer ones. Why they didn't upgrade these to work with the 2022 version, I don't know. I wish they had, because they're cool programs. But since we're sticking with 22, let's do the FPS micro game. This is probably one of the most versatile of the learning programs because there's so much you can do with it. So much customization options available. So once you select the program you want to do, it may ask you to download the template. It's not asking me because I've downloaded it before. But as you may have noticed with some of these other ones, they have a little button here that says download template, right? So once you select the learning program you're going to do, go ahead and download it. And then we're going to name it. Always name your projects because you want to be able to quickly find them later on. I usually name them with my name, and that's because I'm a teacher, and it's easier to keep it straight so I know my programs apart from my students' programs. So I'm just going to call it Wisner FPS, unless it's possible I may already have something called that, in which case it's going to kick me. I'm not worried about connecting it to clouds or anything like that. All right, here we go. So it is creating the program now. It does take several minutes to create a new program. So I'll probably fast forward through this bit instead of sitting here waiting with you guys. Okay, it looks like it finished downloading. We are in. So of course here we have the option of either jumping straight to the scene or loading the tutorials. As a newbie, I always suggest you do the tutorials. Now I've already done them, so you'll see the check marks on mine. I did them in a previous program, but Unity does seem to remember that. So here are the tutorials that they have that you should definitely do. They are great at walking you through the process of some real basic stuff, right? How to do some simple edits, such as colors, adding enemies, and all that. And we'll do a lot of that as well here in a moment. But I think this is actually probably a good place to stop the video, if I'm being honest. Let's stop the video and give you some time to go through the tutorial. When you're done, I'll have some more videos up where we can talk about other ways to edit your game. Sound good? All right, I'll see you then.